All right, so we're diving deep today into something pretty cool, actually. It's Tony Robbins RPM Method. Have you heard of this one?
Yeah, definitely RPM. It stands for Results Purpose Massive Action Plan.
Results, Purpose, Massive Action Plan. Okay, yeah, so this is all about achieving goals, but doing it kind of differently. You know how sometimes you set goals and then they just fizzle out? This is supposed to like supercharge the whole process. So we're going to break it down, like really get into the nuts and bolts of how it works and why it's so effective, and hopefully give our listeners some solid takeaways to actually use it.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think one of the most powerful things about RPM is that it's not just some abstract theory, it's a practical framework that anyone can apply. Like no matter what your goals are, whether it's in your career, your personal life, whatever.
Right, exactly. So let's dive into the first part then, results. This is where it all starts. What do you actually want to achieve? Like really want, and Tony's big on clarity here, like crystal clear vision of the outcome.
Yeah, he's all about like ditching the vagueness. You know how some people just have this general idea of what they want, like I want to be successful or I want to be happy. But with RPM, it's got to be way more specific.
Right. It's not enough to just want to be on the green in golf. You need to know exactly which spot near the hole you're aiming for. Otherwise, you're just kind of wandering around.
Totally. And the thing is, when you have that level of clarity, something really interesting happens in your brain. There's this thing called the reticular activating system, or RAS. And it basically acts as a filter for all the information that's coming at you all the time.
Oh, I've heard about that. So, like, if you decide you really want a red car, suddenly you start seeing red cars everywhere.
Exactly. It's because your RAS is now tuned in to that specific thing. So when you define a clear result, your brain starts picking up on opportunities and resources that you might have missed otherwise. It's pretty wild.
That's so cool. And it's like once you really decide what you want, your mind starts working on it, even subconsciously. Like it becomes this magnet for the things that can help you get there.
And that's why it's so important that this result is something you genuinely want, not just something you think you should do or what someone else expects of you.
Right. It has to be driven by your own desires and motivations. Like you were saying earlier, Tony talks about Steph Curry, right? And how he focuses on those two tiny rings at the top of the basketball hoop instead of just the whole basket.
Yeah, that pinpoint focus is a huge part of his insane accuracy. And it's a great analogy for how we should approach our goals. Like the more precise and specific we are, the better our chances of hitting the mark.
Makes sense. So before we move on, any other thoughts on this whole result piece? Like, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I'd say number one is get super clear on what you actually want. No more fuzzy goals. Get specific, measurable if possible. Write it down, visualize it, really feel it.
That's good advice. And I guess the other thing is make sure it's something you truly desire, like something that lights you up inside, because that's going to fuel you through the challenges and setbacks.
100%. So once you've got that solid result locked in, that's when we move on to the next piece, purpose. Why do you want this thing? Like what's the deep down driving force behind it?
This is the juicy stuff, right? This is where we connect with the emotional core of the goal. And Tony's really clear here, too. It can't just be a should, it's got to be a must.
Yeah, like think about it this way. If your actions are driven by have to, it's going to feel like a drag. No matter how much you achieve externally, it's going to feel like you're constantly pushing a boulder uphill.
Yeah, I've been there. It's exhausting. But when it comes from a place of get to, it's a whole different ballgame. It's like you're energized and excited about taking action because it's aligned with what truly matters to you.
And it's interesting because it's not always about the external circumstances. It's about how you frame it. Like let's say you have a really demanding job. Okay, maybe you have to work long hours to pay the bills. But if you connect it to a deeper purpose, like providing for your family or building a business that makes a difference, suddenly it becomes something you get to do. And that changes everything.
That's a powerful mindset shift. And it makes me think of those people who are like super successful on paper, but they're miserable. They're burned out because they're chasing goals that don't resonate with their true values.
Absolutely. And that's why this purpose piece is so crucial. It's the fuel that keeps you going. It's the source of your motivation and resilience.
So how can our listeners tap into that? Like, how do you figure out your why for a specific goal?
Well, I think it starts with asking yourself some really honest questions, like, why is this important to me? What impact do I want to have? How will achieving this goal make me feel? What values does it align with?
And don't be afraid to go deep, like really dig into the emotional layer, because that's where the real power lies.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about logic and reason. It's about connecting with your heart and your gut. And once you've got that strong why locked in, that's when things really start to take off.
So now we've got the what and the why, but how do we actually make it happen? That's where the massive action plan comes in, right?
Yeah, this is the how. It's your roadmap to success. But there's a catch. Tony warns against jumping to the how too quickly.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because if you start with how, especially when you're facing something new and challenging, your brain can get overwhelmed. It's like trying to solve a complex puzzle without knowing what the picture is supposed to look like.
So you're saying it's better to focus on the what and the why, first get that foundation solid, and then the how will become more apparent.
Exactly. It's like in Tony's business mastery program, they have this 10 planning process, and they spend a ton of time up front getting clarity on the desired outcomes and the driving purpose before they even start brainstorming strategies.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like once you know exactly what you want and why you want it, the path forward kind of reveals itself.
Yeah, your brain becomes this problem-solving machine. It starts connecting the dots, and you start seeing opportunities you wouldn't have noticed before.
Okay, so let's say we've got our what and our why all figured out. Now it's time to create that massive action plan. What does that actually involve?
Well, it's all about breaking down your big goal into smaller, manageable steps, and then prioritizing those steps based on their impact.
So it's not just about being busy and checking things off a to-do list. It's about focusing on the actions that will move the needle the most.
100%. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They get caught in the trap of activity versus achievement. They're doing a ton of stuff, but it's not actually getting them closer to their goal.
Right, it's like running on a treadmill. You're putting in the effort, but you're not going anywhere. So how do you avoid that? Like, how do you make sure your actions are actually productive?
Well, one thing Tony emphasizes is the power of collaboration. Like, don't try to do everything yourself. Get other people involved, bounce ideas off them, ask for feedback.
That's such a good point because sometimes you're so in your own head you can't see the forest for the trees, and someone else might have a fresh perspective that can totally unlock things.
Totally. And another key concept here is what Tony calls must times. These are the non-negotiable actions that you commit to doing no matter what.
Oh, I like that. So it's like those high impact activities that, will make a significant difference if you do them consistently.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing the things that really move the needle and then making sure those things get done even when you're busy or stressed or feeling unmotivated.
So to recap, the RPM method is all about asking yourself three key questions. What's the result you're after? What's the purpose driving you? And what's your massive action plan to make it happen? And the sequence is super important. Result first, then purpose, then action.
And it's not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. You're constantly evaluating and refining your goals, your why, and your action plan as you go.
Right. It's like this dynamic feedback loop. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional and committed.
Exactly. And I think the beauty of RPM is that it can be applied to any area of your life, whether it's your career, your relationships, your health, your finances, whatever it is that you want to achieve.
So for our listeners out there, think about one goal you have right now. Maybe it's something you've been putting off or something you're really excited about. And ask yourself the three questions: what's the result? What's the purpose? What's the massive action plan?
And really spend some time with those questions. Don't just give them a quick surface level answer. Dig deep, get clear on your why, break it down into actionable steps.
And see what happens. I think you'll be amazed at how much more focused and energized you feel and how much faster you start moving towards your goals.
Totally, because when you're aligned with your purpose and you have a clear roadmap to follow, anything is possible.
All right, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Tony Robbins' RPM method. Hopefully this has given you some practical tools and insights to take your goal setting to the next level.
Yeah, and remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about taking action and making progress one step at a time.
So get out there, make it happen, and let us know how it goes.
Until
For joining us, and until next time, keep diving deep into the things that matter most to you.